There, now I'm recording.
You were saying some things that were interesting.
I was saying some things that are interesting. What did I say?
Yeah, you were talking about camera setup and like you had this bougie setup. And
Well, this setup, I don't consider this setup to be bougie. You consider this to be bougie?
I do, because things are coming at me.
Well, that's because I think we've worked through like an era in my like creativity that was just very shoestring. I mean, we were working together when I had a 15-year-old camera and like a 10-year-old audio recorder. Like I had nothing. I had the same gear for over a decade. So
You made it work though. You were
I made it,
scrappy,
yeah, absolutely.
MacGyver.
You have to be starting out. Nobody's going to give you a budget before you show what you can do with no budget. You show what you can do with no budget, and then, yeah. But you have to be like mega resourceful to get there, right?
Yeah, scrappy for sure.
And
Fluid.
there's no promise that works out for anybody. There's no, like, you can be scrappy your entire life. I could go, 50 years of creating like scrappy, low budget content and never get a shot at a budget. But here I am with a shot at a low budget kind of production and see how it goes. So yeah.
You need that alley-oop.
Yeah.
You need somebody to tickle you.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we are with the setup. We got the audio recording, the video switcher, and I just edit live. And then once I'm done with the podcast, I hardly have to do any work. I have to make sure that the audio never clips, but it's all there. It's already edited because I'm live switching during the product. So I'm going to, the cameras, if I don't like the camera angle, I can't switch it later. If I mess up a cut, I can't, but it saves me a lot of time on the back end.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just being resourceful, figuring out how to do things by myself. I've never seen this kind of a setup before. I
like it. No, I'm appreciating all the things now.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's our topic for today is, being creative in a world that doesn't necessarily encourage it or reward it all the time. And that's something that I run into a lot in, a non-corporate world, and you've run into a lot in a corporate world,
Yes.
Geez, what are your initial thoughts on the topic in general?
It's difficult. I mean, it's when you grow up, most people experience in school that if you can gamify the system, so you can look at education like, okay, I'm going to put C for every answer, and then that's how I'm going to get the score that I'm going to get or whatever. Yeah. Lots of shortcuts. And if you're a creative thinker, just from growing up, you're a creative thinker, you are just thinking along those lines. You're thinking, okay, I'm going to put these answers down, and that's going to be what they're looking for. And then you're on to something else.
Right, yeah. And so. I try to pass those skills along to my kid, right? And I try to teach him, it's got to be a combination of both. You have to know a lot about the topic you're dealing with on the test, but then there's also the skill of test taking. There's going to be questions that come out you can't memorize. You can't know what's going to be on the test. You can't know what information you're going to need to know. And so you kind of need the bullshit skill, right?
You do, but there is kids who can memorize.
Yeah,
and that's the non-creatives. They just memorize everything and then boom, there you go.
So once they're out, do you see the kids that are capable of that bullshit skill being that creativity being more successful or less successful than the kids that were able to memorize things, or have you been able to track that at all?
You figure out your groove, understanding who you are and what you can do. But generally, it doesn't go well. Like in the beginning, when you are working with a lot of non-creative people, it doesn't go well, matching up. That has been my experience.
I see that a lot. People that are one or the other. They're either the memorizing person or they're the creative person, and they try to cross to the other side once they get to college or they get out of college. They're trying to do the thing that goes against like their natural skill set. I think a lot of times is like, oh, I came out of college and tried to work like a normal corporate job, and it's like, oh, that directly goes against my skill set. Unionized workers don't want creative solutions. They want to work their hours, get paid for their hours, the wage that their union has decided, which are great wages. But if you're creative in that situation, it's not rewarded, right?
No, it's not. Well, it isn't until it is.
That's fair.
It isn't until it is, until it's the last straw. Like, we need solutions. We need to figure this out. Okay, yeah, let's bring in all the creative thinkers.
That's when we
and
come
then
out,
there you go. You know, like, so that it is until it isn't.
It's one of those like this shouldn't be a last ditch effort, but that's usually when we come out of the woodwork is those creative thinkers to come save the day.
Yes, they're like, this is the last straw. What are we gonna do?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, so if somebody is in this position of being creative, they're trying to make it in this world. They're trying to figure out, you know, where do I fit? Where do I belong? And how do I leverage this skill that I have of creativity? What's the direction? Because it's like, if you're in a creative field with creativity, that's a challenge, because you still need to be organized in those creative fields, or you need somebody on your side who's organized to kind of give you some sort of direction, right? And so it's like, oh, the number of employers out there who are looking for that, it's like, if you don't have experience, they're not looking for you. And so it's like, there's that catch-22 there, where it's like, I need to be the creative mindset that I was, you know, raised with. I kind of nurtured. And then also I need this experience that I can't get without being uncreative. It's just this weird catch-22. Yeah,
it's both sides of the brain, right? But figuring out how you can collaborate, because all of this is all collaboration. It's all working in groups. It's all working in teams. It's how it works. Like companies, any brands, anything like that, typically there's a team working. And so figuring out what your contribution is to that team, and being creative, you see all the pathways, you see all the different things. But if you're an uncreative person, you don't think like that. Understanding like, this person's really organized, so I can work with them. I should look for the analyst. I should look for the programmer. I should look for that type of mindset, that strength, and work with them.
So what we don't see, or what I don't see, I'm only one guy with one perspective, right? When I've worked in those type of environments where I am there to provide that kind of creativity, that creative perspective, a lot of times I see that there is a desire to stick with what has worked, even if it's not working presently. And the amount of energy and dedication it takes from executives in that kind of a world, it takes a lot of dedication to depart from the familiar, not even from what's working. That's what they'll call it. They'll say, hey, this is what's working. It's not working. And it's like,
yeah, you get disconnected from everything. But the idea, honestly, is when it comes to marketing, when it comes to putting a product or service out there, is that they don't need to know you. They don't need to trust you. They need to know you. So they don't need to trust you. They need to know you. They need to know who you are. So if you're recognizable, then okay, yeah, I'll buy your product. I'll buy your service. And what is known, even if it's failure, at least they know what it is.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So most people are not going to step out and be uncomfortable. They're going to just take it. They're going to take whatever abuse, whatever negative energies coming at them, whatever work environment that they can't stand, because they know it. They understand it.
So you have like a really you have one of the most like colorful work histories of anyone that I know. Your work history is incredible. You've worked in like corporations, you've worked as a teacher, you've worked as a creative, you worked in marketing. Like, you're all over the place, and everything you've done, you've been wildly successful at. And all via your creative problem solving and your willingness to get creative and to let others do what they're best at and make sure that you're in your lane, right? So how do you apply this creative mindset in all those different scenarios? Is it the same, or does it change based on the scenario you're in?
It doesn't. It's gotten easier for me to just focus on what I'm really good at. So I realized that the reason why I was good at all the different things is because I'm a strategic thinker.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm always thinking like, okay, we can do this, and I map things out. And so the more I started doing that, like it just, then it clicked into place of like, oh, I really like doing this too. So I'm not doing other stuff that that's interesting, but I'm not really that into it.
So that's kind of step one, is figuring out what you enjoy doing and what you're good at. That creates value when you're enjoying yourself.
Yes. That's the sphere of genius. I feel like it's like you like doing it and you're good at doing it.
Absolutely.
A lot of that. And if you focus on getting to that point, understanding what you do like doing, like, oh, this is so fun. What action are you taking? Like, what are you actually doing? Doing more of that. And then just eliminating stuff where you're not doing that.
That's definitely step one, is to start there. Step two, which you said earlier, I wouldn't have known this if you hadn't said this 30 seconds ago, is becoming known for that. So how do you go about, a lot of people do what they're good at and they love doing it, but they do it behind the scenes and they do it forever and they never get known for it. It's like, how did you get yourself even like in a creative environment that might be easier when you're, the back end for a creative, they're always talking about you, that kind of a thing. Like you did for me when you were, the face of your own thing. You were Audrey Boyle. You were out there as Audrey Boyle is the name of your Facebook page, your YouTube channel. And I was there creating content for you. You were always putting my name out there. It was very easy for me to work the back end, not have my face out there, and still become known for what I did.
Yes.
But if you're in a corporate environment, nobody's constantly putting your name out there. They want their logo on that, and they don't want the creative's name there. So you were able to become known for what you did within a corporate environment. What kind of strategically do you do to ensure that you're becoming known rather than just being, step one is be awesome at it, focus on what you're good at. Step two is becoming known. What's the strategy there?
So I keep in mind, it's incredibly difficult to, the analogy, me and analogies, you're a coach of a team, and usually they stop the coach at halftime and they say, tell us what you're going to do to be successful. It's like, how do you comment on something you haven't fully formulated yet while you're doing it? Like, how do you inform on yourself while you're on stage? How do you sell concert t-shirts off stage and you're on stage doing a performance? And just focusing on what are the 3 messages you want them to know of you. Like, okay, I want them to know I'm a comedian. I want them to know that educator. I want them to know that that social media is my jam. So all of this together, I'm just hammering those messages out there, and any opportunity that I can to show what I'm doing, I do. And then always giving credit. Like if somebody took the picture, they took the picture. Just throwing it out there. It's light, because people will, if they're on social media, will click and see like who is it that was tagged. And it's just easier if you are always moving forward together.
Do you think it's really important to leverage social media when it comes to becoming known for what you do? Or do you think it's equally important, more important to do so off social media? Because there's the word of mouth aspect. And that's something that I learned about when I was in college. Is my first few years in the communication program, I was creating like crazy. And then at some point I stopped, and I was working on one project for a really long time, for like 2 years. But the freshmen who came in 2 years later still knew me as this top video creator. And I asked one of them, I said, you think I'm a great video creator, right? He goes, yeah, you're the best. I go, what video have you ever seen that I've created? And he goes, I don't think I've ever seen one. And so there's an aspect of branding there, and it's just interpersonal. It's not on social media because I'm not creating anything, but just within that environment, in that school, which a school environment is really, it's a lot easier than like maybe other environments. But if we can, and I'm constantly going to go back to the corporate setting, because I think that's the most challenging one to like become known for something in, is like in a corporate setting, how do you do that? Is it equally important that you're doing it interpersonally and on social media, or is one of them more important?
So you're not just a job title, and that's the problem with corporate. If you're in corporate America right now, you're not your job title. That's not it. Because, I mean, honestly, you could be dead and they would still go, deadline. They would hire somebody they know, like that. It's you are at the end replaceable. And so thinking about if you're not the title, then what are you? How do you define yourself? And then that's where the messaging comes into play. So in a small environment of creatives, being able to narrow down and have word of mouth, absolutely. But most people don't have those opportunities where they're around a lot of people where they can do their elevator pitch.
Yep.
They can say like, oh, I do this, and people can talk about their work. So how do you broadcast that? And social media is a good way to do it. I always say, like, at least make sure your profile and your digital presence is high and tight. Like, you refresh it every now and then to be relevant and current. And besides that, just what's the messaging? What do you want to be known for? Like, zoom out from just the job, because really what you do for a living is directly impacted by your home life. So it's like all one lifestyle. Sure. And so once we put it together, this is me in corporate America, like capitalism, we need to put those two things together and stop separating them.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a ton of sense. So when it comes to, it's everything. So it should be on social media, and it should be like really evident to people that you're just interacting with.
Yes. Yeah, think about it. Think about what it is you want. What do you want to be known for? Have a session with yourself. Have a date with yourself, and just think things through, because you don't want to stumble around in the dark of your life. You want to be the lead character. So how are you the lead character?
Audrey is the session master, by the way, having a session, mapping things out, deciding direction.
Yes, I love it.
Absolutely.
I love all of it.
Spectacular. So, man, so it takes a little forethought. It's not something that you're just going to fall into. It's not something that you're just going to be working every day and people are just going to go, oh my goodness, probably. Probably it's going to take a little thought, and you have to say, what do I want to be known for? This actually goes against kind of the new millennial Gen Z kind of idea of quiet quitting. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. The idea that
I am.
I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm going to do the tasks that were on my job description and nothing more.
Yeah, honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. There is people like that all over in general. They just didn't actually have a label.
Right.
It's been done. We all know people who have done that. I would say to the quiet quitter, okay, great. There is other ways that you can find joy in your day other than quiet quitting. You could take intentional breaks. You could take walks. You can move. You can do side projects. You can do side hustles. You can interest yourself. You can do things with your life other than your work that will satisfy your needs. And that you don't have to look at it like quiet quitting.
Potentially there's a combination here that I'm just now thinking of, is to say no to anything that doesn't meet two criteria. First of all, it's not on your description, your job description. And secondly, if you add in this one, maybe you have something really good, is if it's not something you want to be known for. It's like, I will do extra work if it helps me get known for what I love to do, right? That might be something that leads you into doing something that you actually want to end up doing. Now, without having thought through it, does that feel like something that you did while you were in corporate America? Do you feel like you took on extra tasks that weren't part of your job description because it was something that you wanted to be known for?
I wanted to do well. Yeah, that's what you end up doing, right? You want to do well. You want people to have a good impression of you in corporate America. So it depends on how you do it. It depends on how you do it. And it's the culture. It's not something that one person figures out. It's just the way it works. It's what people know, right? So you can have corporate environments where it is, they do invest in the employee. They do work with them. They do think about all the things. How do they keep them engaged? But my life in corporate was, I think that most people go through this stage of their lives where they start working at companies because they just so happen to be looking for a job when the company was hiring.
Yep.
And that was what I did. And that's kind of how I fell into corporate. Also, going to college, once you go to college, you want to have all the success. You want to say something equally impressive when somebody says, "Oh, what do you do?" or what's your school or whatever. So you fall into those types of patterns. And I challenge everyone to start thinking about like, okay, that impressive thing that you say when they say, "What do you do?" Are you proud of that? And figure out how you can be proud of it when you say what it is you do. Like if there is a label, like what is it? And it's all about self-awareness, and it's hard to get there. It's really hard to get there, but self-care, self-love, thinking about yourself, loving yourself will make everything better around you.
That makes a ton of sense. So you did that. You pretty much got to the top of the chain. You were at the top of corporate America.
Yeah.
Doing your creative problem solving thing. That's how you got there. You did amazing things there. And then you left and you went into being a creative in a creative space. And you've done that in a couple of different ways over the past, oh my goodness, 10 years. Like it's been a minute that you've been in this creative space, and yeah, you figured it out for yourself, marketing yourself very strongly for a time, and now you're helping market others. You're helping to prop them up, which those people that are working with people like you, they are, 100% on board with the creative problem solving. Is like there are now hopefully no barriers to you being a creative. How do you get to that point where you're in that position?
A lot of top leaders are creative thinkers. Like if you're a CEO, president of a successful company, you are a creative thinker. So you have to be. So getting to those people within organizations and working with them, because then in the end, it's like we all want to make a difference. Like how can we make change or make things better? So whichever way you can contribute to that is important.
You make that sound easy, but I don't know how to get in touch with a CEO of a company. I don't know how to get in touch with them and be like, hey, you know what I'm good at? Problem solving. I'm just going to waltz in and let them know what my skill set is. And, where's the proof in the pudding? Where's the pudding? I don't know where I left that shit. Oh, man.
They put their pants on the same way. I feel like it's just like finding those people. I know that I've said to you, I can figure out who I need to meet with to do all the things. Like, I'll figure it out.
So I think that's a skill set that's pretty specific to you. I don't know a lot of people that waltz into boardrooms with the amount of confidence that you do. What's your secret? How do you get that kind of level of, I belong here?
Belonging is important. I think that the way I grew up, I was in a Ghanaian community in Oklahoma. So just having a strong family, and then from there, just having the confidence that you'll just figure it out. You will figure it out. I'm going to tell everybody, you will figure it out. Everything will be okay.
Interesting. So on the kind of spectrum of hard work is the key to success versus luck or the right opportunities or money is the key to success, how were you raised? I'm curious.
Hard work was the key to success, definitely. Lots of hard work, definitely. My parents were hard workers. They are hard workers.
And now that you've achieved success on your own terms, how do you feel like that compared to reality?
I look at most of my family is successful too, so it's a vibe, I guess, to answer that question. You're asking such good questions. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't even thought about it. I'm not
trying to. It's just happening.
I love it.
Yeah.
The reality is that I've always had that self-love, always looking at yourself, knowing that it's going to be okay, that you're going to figure it out, and just continuing to take one step forward no matter what. Like, I think that if you are always moving forward, you're unstoppable. So even if it's just like me putting on tennis shoes that day or me taking a nap because I'm tired. So just making small steps forward, it eventually will become big decisions over time.
I think that's very difficult from the perspective that you are going to perceive the fruits of your labor based on success or failure, right? And I think that that's been, for me, paralyzing at times. When I put in a lot of hard work and I see failure from a project, I go, oh no, what did I do wrong? I see you've operated differently from me in that regard. When you have something that you perceive to be a failure, you tend to go, just got to keep trying. Even if you put in 100%, you just continue to put in 100%. And the other thing there that I've seen you do is you see the silver lining. You can take any outcome and you can see the success within it. Times where we've been working together, we've created a product. I go, man, that really flopped. That was a failure. And you go, wow, but look at this reaction. Look at this person who found value in what we created. And that was amazing. And I think that's really unique. Is that something that you did even before we worked together? Was that something where, and is that something where you're verbalizing one thing and feeling another, or is that just how you feel?
It's just how I feel.
Wow. What a mindset. That's incredible. And that is born out of self-love. That's born out of your own confidence that you're doing something that's worth something, right? That you're doing something of value.
It's incredibly hard, though. It's incredibly hard because the world is uncreative. The world does not look at it like that. The glass is half full, or half empty. The glass is half empty in this world, especially you turn on the news and there's so many things. So how do you change that narrative where life is happening for you and not to you? And it's just all about your perspective and your mindset. It's just all how you look at it.
Happening for you and not to you. Interesting. Happening for you and not to you. You have an example of that? I'm trying to understand how that works. I would love for that to happen.
I would love for that to happen.
If life could just happen for me,
life is happening for you.
Perpetually? That's just the truth of the matter is life is happening for me?
It is happening for you, not to you. Man. If you look at it that way.
Nothing makes me feel like more of a pessimist than talking to you. Talking to you makes me feel like I just have the most dreary outlook on life because you have such a positive outlook on life and everything's always, and I think, man, that must be something that you can attribute your success to is just this perpetually seeing the good side of things and not letting yourself be paralyzed by the downsides, the failures. Man, that's really interesting. How do you stay in that mindset? Is it easy for you?
No, it's so I was in front of the camera a lot and I'm now not in front of the camera anymore. Yeah. And back. I find it is amazing to not be.
Yeah.
And just figuring it out. The mindset of who you are and what really brings you joy and just doing more of that. And that's not something that happens overnight. Trauma, all the things that happen in your life, it's not something that you could just turn on a switch and be like, oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm going to do that. And most people do that. Oh, I'm going to do this. They find the need to put a label to it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to walk through this hallway. I'm going to walk through this door. And now I'm back in another hallway. You still have to figure it out. So just understanding that shift happens. It's always changing and life is always changing. And so it's all about your mindset as things are changing. Children are more adept at it because everything's changing in the world all the time. They have no idea. They could have a sub, they could have a new friend, somebody could be weird, who knows? They're going on vacations. They have no idea what to expect.
They're constantly learning to adapt to whatever their parents, teachers, friends throw at them.
Yes.
Whereas as adults, we've developed some sort of consistency. We know what to expect from a day. We put on our shoes and we go to work at the same time and we get the same thing every day from our jobs, maybe, unless you're working like we are in a creative field.
But, okay, so they do. They get in patterns. We get in patterns because we like it. It's habitual. We form these patterns.
It's familiar.
And negative thoughts. So the average person has, 8,000 to 40,000 thoughts a day.
No way.
And 80% of your thoughts are negative.
80%?
90, I want to say like 94% is repetitive. So we have the same negative thoughts every single day.
Jeez. So that's
super depressing. I know.
the fact that it's repetitive, though, makes me think that, if we listen to older people, they're always like, the news is all negative now, and they'll blame that for these negative thoughts. Do you think that the fact that it's repetitive makes it feel like it's not based on some sort of external source? You're saying that there is an ingrained, innate human negativity.
Yes, it's there already. It's just the news is just like caramel topping, or it's a cherry.
Oh, we have it backwards. The news is giving us what we want. Oh, man. That's so depressing.
I mean, that's negative news does better.
For sure.
So why not? So if we start to look at things from a different mindset of affirmations and telling yourself that you are good and changing your thoughts. If you change one of your thoughts every day or 5% of your thoughts every day, you're going to start to change as a person.
If it's 8,000 thoughts, one a day isn't going to go very far.
No, it's like, okay, 5%. Let me give it a number now.
Yeah, 20 days later, you arrived. 100% of your thoughts are changed. Man. So, how do you, so do you feel like, kind of in those situations, do you ever see something that you've done as a failure and you have to change it? Or is it, because it could be one or the other. It could be that you're constantly experiencing perceived failures and you're having to rewrite it in your head. Or is it something where, maybe it's both actually, something where as you've done it, you've created a habit of seeing the positivity. And as you go, is it always a struggle? There's something with like public speaking. A lot of public speakers say, yeah, it's always hard. It's hard every time I get on stage, right? And some say, no, once I'm in the habit of going on stage, it's kind of the same. It's like some people say, I get on stage once a week and I'm nervous every time. And so it's like, which is it? Is it a habit of switching from the perceived failure into a perceived success? Or is it a habit that it's like, oh, I've just stopped seeing the failure in most things?
I like the double-headed perspective on this. I'll just start there. I think that it's both. It's however you want to look at it. So I believe your best teacher was your last failure. So there's some type of lesson in whatever is going on, and just looking at it and being like, okay, let me take emotion out of it and look at what happened. And the more you can do that, you can go, oh yeah, I should have done this, or this would have been a better way to go. So, or not even saying shoulda, woulda, because that's never good.
Yeah.
But to think like the next time this happens, you have more information.
There's a small contradiction there. Is that part of your success is attributed to your ability to not be paralyzed, not be slowed down by failures by perceiving the success in those scenarios.
Yes.
But you also at the same time have to acknowledge the failure so that you can learn from it and do better next time. That's like a catch-22 kind of. That's a challenging thing where it's like you do need to learn from the failure. Therefore, you need to acknowledge it. But also don't let yourself be paralyzed by it. This is a complex gray scenario. It's not black and white as far as like...
No, not at all.
It's not a 12-step process.
I didn't know that we'd be talking about this. So my sister was telling me a couple months ago, I said, I have negative thoughts. Like I had a negative thought, something in particular. And she's like, don't stop the negative thought. Let it go through, because stopping it doesn't work either. But then follow it up with an affirmation, something positive.
Oh, nice.
So it's like a attaboy, like after, this dark impending doom walks by. I don't know.
Got to get the ass slapped. What are you even doing?
So something along the lines where you just are just tweaking it a little bit. You have another thought other than the one that you had. And you don't remember at the time, like that's impossible. So writing down what those are. So you just always go, oh yeah, I'm going to think this right now.
And I don't think writing down is always about being able to read it later as much as the process of writing something down really helps ingrain it into your head.
Yes.
The process of either writing something down helps ingrain it, having an emotion attached to something really helps ingrain it, which failure creates a ton of emotion.
Yes, it does.
I remember my failures way more than my successes.
You do, of course. That's all you'll think about. You can have tons of successes and you're just going to remember the failure.
And I think that's true of ultra successful people. I think I see that all the time. Ultra successful people it can just like that bring up, oh, here's a time where things went terribly bad.
Yes.
But I think they've also kind of learned to present themselves without that, to push that deep down inside, to learn from it without ever talking about it.
Oh man, and I've talked about my failures,
I mean, I think the difference is if you're an executive or a CEO or anybody kind of trying to climb a ladder, you don't want to be known for your failures. Whereas you as a teacher, that's the only way you can really teach is from failure. I mean, they say that. They say failure is the best teacher, right?
Yes.
And so it's like, if you want to be an effective teacher, you need to be able to teach your students, not just, hey, here's the right way to go. That'll never work. It's like, hey, this thing that when I was your age or when I was starting out in my profession, I thought this would work really well and it didn't. It was awful. Having them learn from those failures is super important.
Yes.
So I think that your mindset as an educator, man, again, you've just done so much. Going from executive to educator to creative you've been a creative the whole time, but having that be your career is different. Man, what an absolute, you kind of done similar things in so many different ways. And just, man. So
I found each one of those things very interesting until it wasn't. And I look at it because I was successful at it, but I wasn't loving it.
And you're loving what you do now?
Yes.
How did you discover that? What was the kind of the moment that you said, I'm not enjoying this. I have to try something new and I don't know if I'll love it or not. I think as far as what I know of you, you enjoyed everything you got into when you got into it, and it took time to realize, I'm not loving this anymore. Mm-hmm. And when you quit something, you quit without a plan. I love that about you. You quit with no safety blanket, no netting underneath. You jump off the wire, hoping some other wire will appear underneath you. It's all black. You can't see where you're going, but you jump anyways. And this is part of it. You're always seeing the success in everything. You're always seeing, hey, something's going to turn out. You have that mindset. And I think that's worked wonders for you. But when you jump and you do that leap, that quit, that this is no longer fulfilling for me, and I refuse to sit in a place where I'm not fulfilled. Mm-hmm. That's a great mindset. But once you do that, what's the strategy? How do you find the thing that will fulfill you, and how do you jump into that full force?
So I look at it like my perspective. So the positive perspective is, this is an origin story, from the depths and ashes. Like, she has no job and she has a family to feed, what is the next story? Like, what does that story look like? Because that's usually how the story starts. Yep. And so I look at it like that, like this is just the beginning of an epic story. I'm going to turn myself around. I'm going to just find a different direction. I'm going to figure it out.
That's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, man, so the way I think of things is, what can I do with the resources I have? What is the extent? And as I gain new resources, I think in that size box, or as I lose resources, I think in a smaller box, right? And I'm trying to be as creative as I can to leverage whatever resources I have available at the time. You, on the other hand, you think first what you want to do, and then you find the resources to do it with.
Yes.
And I've tried that and failed it a million times. I don't know what your secret is. How do you end up finding those resources? Because you decided, I'm going to be a content creator, and then you went and found me. It's like, how did you...
Yeah, that happened right away, too. It was, I just quit. And then all of a sudden I was talking to you. Like, couple weeks after. I think because I was really authentic. I went live and I was like, I just quit my job. I have no job. I have no plan. And just really putting myself out there. So I guess looking back, I put myself out there.
That is a huge part of it. And I tell people this is like, you can leverage your network, however big or small it is. When people ask you, how are you? Don't just say good.
Don't just say good.
You need to absolutely be a little more out there, a little more vulnerable, not about how you're feeling necessarily, if you're having a bad time and things are bad, but to put out what your needs are to people who are asking.
Yes.
Whether they care or not, doesn't matter. As we think a little bit too much, we think nobody cares about us. That's the human mentality. It's like, nobody cares about me. It's like, people want to leverage their network. People want to be the reason that you achieve success, even if it's just networking. If it's like, oh man, I'm trying to do this, but I don't have this guy who has this skill. It's like, if you talk about that every time that somebody asks, how's it going? You go, man, it's tough. I'm trying to find this person. It's like, if that person knows that person, they're excited to connect you.
Yes.
They're excited to go, I know that guy.
You never know. And people closest to you have less of an idea of what it is you're trying to do too, which leverage your network. People do want to help you. You're all right. And if they say, how are you? Answer the question like real, like how, like stop and think like, how am I? And answer it like honestly.
Yep.
And I think you'll go far.
Man. Yeah. And that is for every level. That there's no point where that stops being valuable. That's valuable. Man, like
have a date with yourself and just work it out.
Yeah.
Like, what are 3 things I want people to know about me? And then I'm going to start to talk about those 3 things. I'm not going to leave it up to other people to see me do my things and just know intuitively what it is I want to do with the rest of my life.
Right.
Like that. If you think of it from that angle, like why would you want it to leave it to chance? So figure out what that is and then just start to move forward in that direction.
Right. But that like telling people what I need has been helpful at every stage of my life. If I'm looking for a place to live, letting everybody know that, yeah, life's rough right now. I won't have a place to live in a week. Like, that's helpful.
Yes.
When I'm running my company and I'm saying, I need somebody with this skill set, like no matter what it is, or I want to expand, but I don't know what resources I need, finding the people. Oh, well, I know a guy who ran a company kind of like yours and he might have some advice. Like, that is equally like valuable to, hey, I know a guy who's trying to find a new roommate. Like, every level of like scalability from basic needs up to that last guy who's really going to put the cinch in my success in my business. Every level, it's very helpful to leverage your network in that way.
You got to communicate.
Oh yeah.
You got to communicate.
And that's something
because people don't know. They don't know what's going on inside your head.
And that's something that maybe comes naturally to you. Is that correct to say?
Communicating?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess, so think about how you like to communicate and then tell people this is how I like to communicate and just share that information.
I feel like there is a whole lot of right now and potentially kind of increased by COVID, this like social anxiety. And it's born out of a really good thing. It's born out of this social anxiety is born out of a sense of conscientiousness. And that's not a bad thing. It's like, I don't know if I am imposing on this person if I communicate too much or if I share too much. And that's not a bad mindset to be like, I don't want to impose, right? That's something that I always keep in mind. How do you find that line personally?
Being clear, try to be clear about what it is. So I said with communication, I like text message. I'll ask somebody like, how do you like to communicate? And then I just go with that. If it's text message, if it's Facebook Messenger, if it's WhatsApp, if it's phone call, like what is it?
How do you like to communicate? That's awesome. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much. This has been like, I think this is the most like you could just squeeze every drop out of this conversation. Is just like we went a lot of different places, and I feel like every single place we went, there was just like dense information. So thanks for coming.
Because
we have the chemistry.
We got it. So
Absolutely,
it's not a surprise.
Not at all. Thanks for coming up. Appreciate it.